Good day, everyone. Now let us look at the background of poverty and unemployment in the Philippines. Most of the population of the people living under the poverty line is said to have come from the agricultural workers and those living in areas prone to natural disasters. The causes of poverty in the country are as follows: low economic growth compared to neighboring countries. GDP growth is comparable, however, GDP per capita in relationship to the increase of population is much slower. Constraints in credit and the underdevelopment of financial market, inequality in income and assets, rise of unmanaged population growth, lack of well-paid employment, and frequent occurrence of natural disasters. Disasters cost the country lives, illness, malnutrition, and denial of education and health services, which delay economic growth.
Poverty is not having enough money for a person's needs. Poverty may also include social, economical, and it can also be political. There are two types of poverty: the absolute poverty and the relative poverty. Absolute poverty is the lack of basic needs like food, shelter, and clothing. While relative poverty is a poverty when person cannot meet minimum level of living standards. One example of relative poverty is when some people are living in a brick house while some people are just living in a tent. Relative poverty may vary from one country to another. Poverty is also defined as the lack of basic capacities, someone who cannot go to school or hospitals, or someone who has no lands to grow food or earn money. People or families that experience living in a poverty are people working with salaries below the minimum wage or people who are unemployed. Unemployed is used to call people or individuals that are at the age they are employable and they are seeking for a job but they cannot find one. Unemployment is one of the indicators of an economy status. It's a voluntary unemployment. It happens when workers leave the job because the salary is not fulfilling. And there is also what we call involuntary unemployment. It happens because of the social economic environment. Some examples of involuntary unemployment is a demand deficient unemployment and a structural unemployment.
Main causes of poverty and unemployment in the Philippines. First cause is employment. Labor is the most important asset of the poor, which means that unemployment and underemployment are key determinants of poverty. This shows how the rise in the unemployment rate in the Philippines affected the number of poor families, as without income, they can't feed their families nor have access to resources. Second is population. As the population of the Philippines grow at very high rate of 2.36% per year, more than 5,000 people are born every day, where the number of poor people has also increased. Population growth will not be a problem if resources are available and accessible, but in our country, where poverty is very high, population growth is a major issue. Third is agriculture. Most of the family heads of the poor are engaged in agriculture, where many inequalities exist. The Philippine agricultural sector has been growing erratically since 1980s. There are market distortions and other structural deficiencies. Up until now, poverty rates among farming households have remained very high at over half of all farming households. Next are the main causes of unemployment in the Philippines. First is the nature of jobs and employment. Most people work in the Philippines and few are unemployed. This is because economic growth creates jobs but hardly improves their quality. Wage inequality is high with a large share of workforce in low-paid employment. Also, low educational attainment among youth from poor background remains an issue. Second is the labor market determinants of poverty. People are poor in the Philippines because they earn a little, not because they do not work. Having a job does not provide a pathway out of poverty. It is the quality of job that matters. Workers employed in low productivity job earns low, which is the primary cause of poverty. Thus, increasing the earning capacity of the poor by investing in education, giving access to productive jobs can reduce poverty and unemployment in the Philippines. Next is the poverty cycle. Poverty can be direct or indirect contributor to the unemployment. Families who cannot send their children to school and force their children to work early and apply to lowly paid employment can be detrimental to their future. Lastly, we have the rapid population growth. The pace at which jobs are created simply cannot cope up with steady supply of graduates, many of whom will find themselves unemployed. And the fourth cause of poverty are the frequent occurrences of natural disasters. These disasters cost the country lives, illness, malnutrition, and denial of education, health services, which delayed the economic growth of Philippines.
Are the effects of poverty to the Filipino people? Number 1. Malnutrition. The hunger situation is alarming. The National Statistical Coordination Board stated that more than 11 million Filipinos were considered food poor or living below subsistence level in 2003. Child labor. According to the National Statistics Office, 3.6 million Filipino children aged 5 to 17 are child laborers. Number 4. Bad living conditions. Because of poverty, many families are forced to occupy public and private lands without the right to do so, and because this land is not theirs, it tends to overcrowd. Number 5. Crime or theft. Due to hardships in life caused by poverty, many people can't even get enough money to live. So they kill in order to live, or they do crime in order to live. Number 6. Low education of the poor. Many students cannot go to school because of poverty. They do not have the money to buy for the things that they wear and for the things that they will use for school. Number 7. Bullying. Bullying is common nowadays, and many were bullied because of race, standard, appearance, social class, and discrimination. What are the effects of unemployment to the Filipino people?
Is loss of income. When a person loses his job, then his way of living is also affected. Jobs are the most common way of earning in the Philippines, but if it is taken from them, then they won't be able to provide for their needs, leading to certain problems, especially poverty. The second one is called negative multiplier effect. To make it short, negative multiplier effect is when a number of consequences happen due to one event. For example, when a company closes, many jobs are lost, and the way money works is that it revolves around the hands of the people, from customers, stores, banks, etc. Due to that, the expenditure will be much lower than the normal, leading to decrease in demand and low income, which affects the gross domestic product. The third one is loss of national output, which is also connected to the negative multiplier effect, because if the number of unemployed is increasing, then the number of production will decrease, leading to slow economic growth of the nation. Fourth is the fiscal cost. This is explained through our tax that is also decreasing, leading to limited budget of the government, which is used for creating jobs and improvement of the country. The last one is the social cost, which is when the people will resort to crimes just to provide for their needs, because to them it would be the last way of making money to survive.
With the current situation of poverty and unemployment in the Philippines, there are some organizations nationally and internationally that helps give solutions to lessen the poverty line of the country. Programs for unemployment in the Philippines are the special programs for unemployment for students, active labor market programs, the government internship program, Job Start Philippines program, job bridging internship program, and so much more. Creating a more direct link between education and employment is critical because education must come first above all else. Also, we must reduce rural migration and remove capital intensive bias.